All right, good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit late by 2 minutes, but I'm what you need. You're watching my channel. I hope you like what you're seeing. If you can like, share, subscribe, you can also donate via PayPal. The link is in the description. Also, this stream is brought to you by LIVE Products. LIVE, live now, we're live now. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. In terms of LIVE drinks, we have 7 flavors. We have sorrel orange, fruit punch, grapefruit, Morby, lime, and lemon. You can enjoy your LIVE drinks. They're natural with low in sugar. These are some of the LIVE brand. The other part of the LIVE brand is cleaning products such as dishwashing liquid, disinfectant, liquid detergent, and fabric softener. If you're in the Trinidad and Tobago area, you can get the LIVE products. You can also check the description for that. LIVE, live now, we're live now. Now, let's get into the box, and without further ado, let's go to it. Let's get to it. So, we're talking about Richardson Hitchins versus Liam Paro. And that fight was actually a very well contested fight. It's actually a good fight. But Hitchins came back from behind and he basically swept 7 of the last 7 rounds. Paro took the first 5 and Hitchins took the last 7. I think actually, let me see. Yeah. No, actually, I believe, yeah, that's how the fight went. And the instructions from each corner was on point. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We're also going to talk a bit about the future of both opponents. We're also going to talk a little bit about Jalil Hachett and his fight against Mr. Vasquez and what you guys thought about that fight. And so in the undercard, so we're going to talk about those 2 fights, particularly in this stream. One more thing I want to just bring up in this stream before I go on any further is that this stream is brought to you by also LIVE products, in which I will introduce punches very soon. So LIVE products, we're going to have punches such as pumpkin punch, we're going to have peanut punch, we're going to have dasheen punch. So stay tuned. LIV is coming to you live with punches very soon. And again, you'll be able to order those. So look out for those LIVE products as we expand our LIVE brand. That's for those of you who live in the Trinidad and Tobago area. We're not global yet. We're not regional yet. We're still a small company, but we do sponsor this stream. Now let's talk a little bit about this fight. This was a fight of 2 halves. In the first half of the fight, Liam Paro pretty much dominated that. His straight left was quite a thing to watch. Liam Paro was outlanding Richardson Hitchins. He was more active. His jab was on point. He would keep on coming over the top of Richardson Hitchins' jab when Richardson Hitchins tried to throw the jab. In the second half of the fight, however, Richardson Hitchins found his range and he started to land the right hand. Now, Paro was nullifying most of the time Richardson's jab, even though Richardson had a really nice long jab. Remember, Richardson had the reach and height advantage, 74-inch reach, and I believe he was like 5 foot, what is he, 6 feet? I think he was 5 foot something, 5'8" or 5'9" with a 74-inch reach. So he had a reach advantage. And how Paro would negate that reach advantage was he would inch in, and he would double and triple his jab. He would keep his jab busy to keep Hitchinson's jab at home. And then he would start to pop the jab to the body. So Paro kept on feinting as if he's going up top, and then he would throw a long jab to the body. He would have to slide in to do that, cover ground pretty quickly. Paro had quicker foot speed early on in the fight, but later on in the fight, he started to tire. Yeah, he started to tire, and because of that, Hitchins was able to pick up his game a little bit more. Now, at the end of the 4th round, Paro had swept the first 4 rounds, and Hitchins's corner confirmed what I thought, because I had scored the first 4 rounds, and I said, I don't see how Hitchins is winning this fight. Now, I got to say, the commentary team was very biased towards Hitchins. They were watching everything Hitchins was doing. Now, to be honest, Hitchins was the sharper fighter. He was throwing the sharper shots, the sharper jabs, the sharper right hands. Paro was the busier fighter. Paro was throwing shots, but he had more of a thud to his shots. When Paro caught Hitchins in the fifth with a straight left, it buckled Hitchins. Hitchins got buckled a couple times. Paro got buckled once in the fight. I believe it was in the 8th round against Hitchins. But for the most part, Hitchins is sharp. He's a sharp fighter, right? Paro has more thudding power, and he's not as flashy looking when he hits you with a shot. But you can see the effects of the shot by how Hitchins would buckle or how he would bend in to try and protect that area, and then he would move out the way. Another interesting thing about this fight was Hitchins mostly kept the fight in the center of the ring. While Paro did cut off the ring and get Hitchins in corners, more as the fight progressed, more and more Paro was hesitant to just go in there and do his thing. And Paro basically would jab his way in and then throw the lead left. He would throw the left hand. Okay. Now, as I said before, Paro's mostly uses his left hand for everything, meaning his power shot is usually his left hand. He did use some check hooks in the fight and so on. Hitchins was able to sort of maintain a distance, and then his corner at the end of the 4th round was telling him, you might be down 4 rounds here. You need to pick it up. You need to meet this guy in the center of the ring and push him back. Now, Hitchins very rarely pushed back Paro, but he did stand his ground. He didn't move all excessively around the ring like that. He was standing his ground. He was using his pivots to sort of get the range and the distance he wanted. Now, Paro was landing that left hand, especially early on. And even in the 11th and 12th rounds when Paro picked it back up, okay, and I'll talk about that. In the 11th and 12th rounds when Paro picked it back up, he actually outlanded Hitchins. He was landing a lot of left hands. He was landing a lot of jabs to the body, okay? He was mixing it up. He was throwing lefts to the body and up top. Hitchins, however, had the more flashier shots because he's the sharper fighter. So basically this fight, undisputably, Hitchins took the 7th round. He did take the 8th round. Okay, undisputed. Those were clear rounds. You could see Paro was trying to catch back his win. He was trying to get back in. And Hitchins was landing some really good shots on Paro. By the 9th round, Paro's corner now gave him the right directions. He said, hey, man, you need to pick up your activity. Because Paro started to watch Hitchins. He was respecting Hitchins too much. He was respecting Hitchins' counters. Even though Paro, the weirdest thing about this is, when Paro launched his offense, he might get tagged by Hitchins, but he always got his shot in. He always got his shots in. And he countered Hitchins pretty well as well. He would counter Hitchins' jab. He would counter his right hand. Sometimes he would throw the left. And because he had to reach in so much, he would land the left hand, but Hitchins would catch him with a check hook as he's coming in. And unfortunately, the commentators only saw what Hitchins did. So they would say, oh, look, Hitchins caught him with a check, not realizing that Paro landed a very nice body shot to him. So the commentary was very biased towards Hitchins. This was a close fight. Now, for those people who are saying that the judges, how they could have given Paro the fight, 7-5 to Paro, I'll explain. It's very simple. As I said before, in round 11 and round 12, Paro outlanded Hitchins. In fact, in terms of the more telling shots in both rounds, the more telling shots were Paro. Paro got Hitchins in trouble a couple times in that round, but unfortunately, Paro didn't jump on it. So I'm going to explain to you, Paro was too much of a boxer. He had opportunities to really continue his offense against Hitchins when he got him hurt, and he never did that. He would back off, then he would reset, then he would go back in. And he's an intelligent boxer. You can tell Paro's a boxer. He's not really a pressure fighter, right? He fights with pressure, but he really counters your counter. Or he will counter. He does lead. Don't get me wrong. He will lead off and start an exchange. He'll inch in and lead, but he's still very strategic. He has to work his way into something. And even when he's finished with a 3-4 punch combination on a person, he still resets and then relaunches instead of continuing to put pressure on the guy like how Levos did. So that was the thing with Paro. And so what happened was as the fight progressed, Paro got too respectful of Hitchins' power. And something he would just stand in front of Hitchins, and he wouldn't mount any offense whatsoever. He would just stand in front of Dan. Hitchins would just stand in front of him, and they both just look at each other, right? And every time Paro launched something, he was effective enough that he actually landed something in his exchange. Sometimes Hitchins would get the better shot, the cleaner shot, as Paro was closing the distance, because Paro has to close the distance, obviously. And of course, Paro would change levels, and he would come in, always trying to get underneath Hitchins' jab or underneath Hitchins' right hand. So Hitchins, sometimes some of those flashy shots that y'all thought Hitchins hit Paro with flush were blocked by Paro, or they hit Paro on his shoulder, right? Because Paro would roll it. People don't realize these things, right? So Paro's defense was pretty good. The Paro's nose got bloody, not from Richardson's right hand. His nose got bloody from the elbow that Richardson hit him with, that y'all didn't see. Okay, and it's cool. All right, that's part of boxing. It's rough house. It don't matter. But Paro really didn't get much of injury, and even though he bloodied Richardson's mouth as well, because Paro punched pretty hard. Basically, those two were pretty equally matched in terms of skill and strategy. They had great strategies. Their corners gave them great advice. The corner told Paro to pick it up after the 9th. And Paro did pick it up in the 10th, but not enough, I thought. And in the 11th and 12th, you could give those 2 rounds to Paro. At the end of the 10th round, they were dead even, 5 rounds apiece. Hitchison had come back and win 5 straight rounds. Okay? The momentum was in Hitchison's favor. And then Paro, even though Paro stepped it up in the 10th, and his corner said, yes, you did better. You need to give us more of that. So the corners on point. Both corners were on point giving instructions. Paro stepped it up, but I thought you shouldn't be standing around. If you're the guy who's urgently trying to get the other guy to show the judges that you're winning, you can't be standing around watching another guy. And in the 11th and 12th, he was standing around a little too much. I was saying, press the action, press the action. His corner, I could hear his corner, press the action. When he got Hitchison hurt in the 11th, he didn't press it. When he had him on the back foot, he didn't press it. He stopped and started watching him. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Press it. And then he started to put the juice on. When he started in the 11th and 12th, he actually started to follow through on his offense. So he would attack Hitchison. If he got a shot in, he would come back with another one. The problem was initiating it. He would just stand in front of Hitchins for maybe about a 5 seconds. He just standing there like he's thinking how he's going to do his next attack. And you can't be doing that. You have to just kind of go by instinct, and you just have to let it loose. And if you get hit, you get hit. And I thought that cost him the fight. It's not that he didn't do more work than Hitchins in the 11th and 12th. He outworked Hitchins in the 11th and 12th. But I felt like Hitchins throughout the fight kept his composure, whereas Paro, from rounds 9, 10, and 11, you could feel the urgency in him. And you could feel that because of his urgency, he wasn't composed enough to just launch attacks and just be, continue to be aggressive. Of course, he was worrying about the counters that Hitchison would counter him, because Hitchison would counter real sharp. But still, when he started to throw that caution to the wind, in the 12th round was his best round since the latter half, since the round 5. It was his best round. And you could give him rounds 11 and 12, which is why the fight was a split decision. Because the judges who were looking at who was actually effective, who was actually landing the punches. But again, you have to also score for defense. You also have to score for ring generalship. And so when you look at those things, you could argue that Hitchison was the guy that was more composed. He had better defense, even though Paro was outlanding him in those 2 rounds. You could argue that he was more composed. You could argue that his defense was better, right? Because he was making Paro miss a lot of shots, on clinching him up, locking him up, turning him, and all those kinds of things. Paro was the aggressor throughout the fight. Paro would cut off the ring when he wanted to cut off the ring. But even then, you see him hesitant, almost like Canelo, hesitant to really just go in there and just drill on Hitchinson's body. And because Paro had the right game plan. He was going to Hitchinson's body, beautiful straight lefts to the body, beautiful jabs to the body. He was getting underneath Hitchinson's shots for the most part, for the most of the fight. He had the right game plan, but he kind of wasn't. He was respecting Hitchison, I think, a little too much, because he wouldn't follow through with certain things. When he successfully landed a good left hand on Richardson, and you see Richardson felt that he pivot out the way. Paro would follow up with him right? But he wouldn't do anything. He would just kind of go back into the stance. After he latched his 3-4 punch combination, he would back off. And I'm like, no. And that's the boxer in him. He wanted to counterpunch him. He wanted to pick him apart. And in that game, when you're fighting against a longer fighter, you have to cut the distance. And when that longer fighter starts throwing in his check hook, so you're coming in, you're throwing your long lead left hand. I wish I could show you guys this. You throw the long lead left hand, right? But you're getting check hook while you're doing that. You know that Kell Brook versus Terrence Crawford. Kell Brook was throwing that long lead right hand, and Terrence Crawford caught him with a kind of half jab, half check hook that knocked him out, right? So Paro was aware of that, and he's saying, I can't be doing this too often because this guy's now throwing a check hook in there. So I can see he's calculating how he's doing it and how he's kind of doing that bounce in and out, and he's trying to change up how he goes in and close the distance so that Richardson can't read him. So I get what he was doing. I even see when he was triple jabbing, double and triple jabbing to close the distance, and then he would come up with the left hand. And he was throwing some great left hands, and Hitchins would even acknowledge that. He was throwing some great left hands. The problem was that, and he was mixing up from head to body. The problem was he wasn't doing enough, to win over the judges. So and remember, they're fighting in New York. This is Richardson Hitchins' backyard, right? The crowd's going to go wild anytime Richardson Hitchins even throws something that it don't even have to land. He could have blocked the shot, but just the sharpness of it, the loud explosiveness of it when it hits the gloves and stuff, the crowd's going to go wild. And the crowd started to get into it. And even when you listen to the boxer guy that was trying to advise Hitchins, he was like, Hitchins need to get a move on, man. He need to get a move on or he's going to lose this fight. So there was an urgency after the fourth, and Hitchins really, really put it together. I don't think any of the rounds in between the fifth and the ninth or the 10th, I don't think any of those rounds in between the fifth and the 10th, Paro actually won. I mean, you could argue he probably won I think it was round 7. You could argue that because, it was tit for tat. They were answering each other and stuff. But again, Hitchins, because he's so sharp, he looked better landing his shots than Paro did, So that would definitely sway the judges because Hitchins throughout the fight kept his composure, right? Paro in the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, you could tell he felt the urgency of because he felt like he was losing the fight. The fight was slipping him, and you could see he had the urgency to want to get back into the fight. And when his corner told him at the end of the 9th round, "Hey man, you need to pick this up," and then at the end of the 10th, they were like, "Hey man, you're losing this fight. You need to pick this up," because they drew even at the 10th round. And I was like, "Okay, let's see who takes this fight in the 11th and the 12th." You could argue Paro took the fight because he did land more than Hitchins. He did land more punches than Hitchins. And even the more telling punches, he actually landed in the 11th and 12th. I just think Hitchins' composure and the way Hitchins carried himself when he got hit with those shots, I think that's what won him the fight. I think Paro, and you remember you were in the dude's hometown. They're gonna make noise for that dude regardless, right? I know it's not in the hometown, they were in Puerto Rico, but there was Puerto Rican guys, and there was a lot of people who favored Hitchins. And Hitchins wore the Puerto Rican flag because he wanted to win the Puerto Rican fans over. And then Hitchins, even when he got hit, he catch himself back together. He put himself back together, and Paro gave him that time to put himself back together. That was the problem. Paro respected him too much. He's supposed to jump on him. You in the 11th and 12th round, and you standing up watching this dude? No, you can't be standing up. And I know everybody's going to say, well, Hitchins might have countered him. I'm not listening to biased reporting. I'm looking at, I understand. Paro's a smart fighter. He's not trying to get caught with something stupid. I get it. But he's a shorter fighter. So you got to close the distance, right? So you can't put yourself in a position where you have to reset to close that. You are in the pocket with this dude right now. And every time he's trading in the pocket with Hitchins, he's catching Hitchins with something that's hurting Hitchins. Every time. He had that beautiful jab that he come over the jab with. He had that right hook that he threw as Hitchins is pivoting back out of the way. He catch Hitchins with that right, but he wouldn't follow up. After you come with that 3 or 4 punch combination, you need to follow up and chase this guy down one time. Let him lock you up. Let him force you to end the action. And with your free hand, you're supposed to be working that free hand. Don't rabbit punch him. See, the referee was going with this rabbit punch thing because Hitchins probably complained about that. So they got to that would do that. Because I realized that Paro still need momentum. He need activity. So even when he's in the clinch, you need to be punching in the clinch. All you got to do is be careful with the rabbit punching. And even the one that they charged him, the referee was talking to him about with the rabbit punch, not the one where Hitchins had to take a break and recover. The one where he punched Hitchins right on the ear. It wasn't even behind his head. But the referee was like real ticky-tacky about that. But I felt like the whole thing was rigged for Richardson Hitchins to win. Just the way how the commentary was going, just the way how the referee was reffing. It was the referee was refereeing for a Richardson Hitchins fight. Like that fight wasn't going to get rough and rugged at all. The referee was going to make sure of that, And Paro needed to rough up Richardson Hitchins a bit. He needed to keep on punching him. But he probably would have gotten penalized a punch. In the clinch, when a guy's clinching up at you, you need to keep on punching. You need to keep that activity going. You need to show that you want to win this fight. The problem with Paro is, I know he was the champion and all that, but he didn't show that because of the kind of fighter he is. Because he's a boxer first, and then he's a fighter second. Even though he prides on mixing it up with people. And he did do well. Once they were mixing up and trading, he was doing well in there. He was answering Hitchins. He was landing some really good shots on Hitchins. Hitchins was keeping that poker face. But the problem is, you're supposed to be pressing the action. You don't let nobody off the hook. And that's the problem Paro had. Skill-wise, they both know about the same things. Okay? Skill-wise, they're about the same. They both know, all the different, punches and stuff like that. Hitchins deserved this fight. He deserved this win. He came from behind and he won 7 rounds straight. You could argue. Okay. But for anybody who's saying that the judge who gave it to Paro was cheating and what these judges was looking at, y'all got caught up in the commentary on DAZN. That's what happened. Because y'all wasn't paying attention to what was actually going on. Paro was landing shots. Even when Hitchins was hitting Paro was landing shots. In fact, in that whole fight, I believe Paro outlanded Hitchins. Okay? So I don't think that a judge giving the fight to Paro is wrong. I don't think so at all. I could see that happening because this fight came down to the last 2 rounds. Hitchins pulled back. He took 5 rounds in a row. And then Paro started to surge. Paro started to surge from round 10. Then he surged in round 11. And he really did perform very well in round 11. I'm just saying, you got to make the optics work in your favor. You're not the guy that, most of the fans out there came to back, right? Most of the fans come to back the American. You're an Australian. You're an outsider. So you got to make it emphatic. It's unfortunate, but he had to make that fight emphatic. And he had to sort of disrupt Hitchins. He had to make Hitchins look uncomfortable. But Richardson was comfortable throughout that fight. He was comfortable throughout that fight. He knew he had to press the action in after the 4th. In the 5th, he took it up a bit, Hitchins. But he got hurt when he took it up a bit. And I believe Paro would have hurt Hitchins more if Paro got more into it. Because Paro has all the tools to actually win that fight. He just didn't use them all the time. So it was a good fight. I also thought that Paro actually did better at mid-range when he's mixing it up with Hitchins. Hitchins threw a lot, but I thought Paro actually was doing better than Hitchins when they were mixing it up, which is also very interesting. So I think that Paro respected Hitchins a little too much, and that's what cost him the fight, in my opinion. Okay. Do I think Paro could have won that fight? Absolutely. This was a fight that could have gone either way. It was a swing fight. In fact, I wouldn't call this fight a draw because I gave Hitchins the last 2 rounds based on the optics. I knew that Paro outlanded him. I knew that Paro landed the more effective shots in those last 2 rounds. I just thought that because Hitchins wasn't landing too much of anything on Paro, even though he was landing right hands before in the middle rounds. It really didn't land much of anything in the 11th and 12th. He was mostly keeping his distance. Paro was the aggressor. He would try and counter Paro, but he wasn't really landing anything. He was missing his right hands and stuff. Paro had taken it up. He stopped back his jab as well to keep Hitchins' hand at home, his jabbing hand at home. So Paro did what he was supposed to do in the 11th and 12th. I think his corner would be satisfied with it, but they probably want a little bit more follow through on it. Meaning, if you hurt Hitchins, if you really desperate, you hurt Hitchins, you need to go in a fighting mode and just go at him. Just go at him. You know, you gotta be a little bit more aggressive. You still can be measured aggressive, but you need to be more aggressive. And you can't be standing up there and he's standing up there watching you. Nah, you can't give him no breath. You gotta push the pace on him, take up the pace on him, because then you're fighting his pace, which is why I think Hitchins also won, because he was the ring general. He slowed down the pace of the fight. Paro started the fight at a certain pace, and then the pace of the fight slowed down. Hitchins was able to get Paro's respect because of the right hands, which didn't actually land that frequently, but when they did, it got Paro's attention, right? Because Paro's got to close the distance to get in there, right? So, that was basically the fight in the gist, man. And a good fight, nice tactical, high-level chess-playing fight, in which Hitchins won. And I got to give credit to Coach, what's his name, who said that he thought Hitchins would win. He thought Hitchins was the more skilled fighter. I disagree with that, but I do agree that Hitchins was more poised coming down the stretch, because he was behind by 4 rounds, and he turned it around a bit in the 5th, even though Paro won the 5th by hurting him. I think that if Hitchins had engaged Paro a lot more, I think Paro would have hurt him even more. Because I think Paro's a guy who's more of a counterpuncher than he is an aggressor. He like to counter you, and that's where he's dangerous. But I don't think he's like a real full-blown aggressive fighter who, once he gets you hurt, now he's jumping on you and he's trying to get you out of there, or trying to hurt you even more and get you in a more defensive mindset. So he got you on the run, and now he's chasing you down. He's not that kind of fighter. And that's why the fight actually stayed a lot, especially in the later parts of the fight, in the center of the ring. So that's why I thought that Richardson Hitchins definitely won that fight. But if you see a judge give it to Paro, you understand why. It's because Paro was actually doing good work throughout that fight. Even in the rounds that Paro lost, he kept on responding to Richardson Hitchins. He was responding with jabs and with lead lefts and all kinds of stuff. Hitchins wasn't catching Paro, and Paro wasn't catching Hitchins. That was Richardson Hitchins. That wasn't happening. Paro was getting his shots in. It's just that Richardson Hitchins looked better. Or the commentators would comment more on his stuff. I guess it was biased commentary as well. But Paro was doing some good work. Don't get me wrong. It's just that, like I said before, the appearance, the optics is also very important. One fighter looks like he's got this thing under control. He's slowed down the tempo. He's been able to be the ring general. He's got better he's got defense. I wouldn't say he has better defense, but because the other guy's throwing more, he's able to slip and miss, get certain shots blocked and so on more. So he looks like he's the one more in control. And Richardson Hitchins looked like the guy more in control of the rest of the fight, I think, than Paro looked. Paro looked more as if he needed to take up the fight and to take up the pace. And I think because of that pressure on him, he stopped throwing his jab at certain points in time. And then he came back to his jab in the 11th and 12th round. And I thought he could have taken those rounds because he was the guy that was actually doing more of the work. Richardson Hitchins wasn't really the one doing more of the work. He was throwing a shot here, a shot there, getting something to land here or there. But Paro was the one really pushing the action. The problem was, I thought, what made Hitchins look like he was in control of the fight was Paro would, instead of trying to close the distance on Hitchins, and then when he's in the distance, just work, he would reset, let up, and then just stand there watching the Hitchins trying to work his way back in. And that optic right there is what lost him those 2 rounds. Strange as it sounds, because it felt like, oh, Hitchins is in control right now. Paro's afraid to come in and do something to him. That's the feeling you get. Even though Hitchins wasn't answering Paro when Paro closed the distance, Paro would be able to land stuff on Hitchins. Hitchins would miss his shots. It still looked like Hitchins was in control because of those moments in those rounds. Sometimes 5 seconds, sometimes 2 2, 3 seconds, just standing up watching each other. You knew that Hitchins was in control because he got Paro to stop his momentum. He stopped Paro's momentum. When it was really Paro who stopped his own momentum by resetting and deciding to go at Hitchins again. Instead of doing a 6 or 7 punch combination, he doing 4 or 5, and then he stopped and reset. And you can't do that. You got your man hurt. You need to keep it going, you know. So I think that's what lost Paro the fight. Even though I think he did win the last 2 rounds in terms of punches landed, in terms of the effective punches landing. I think he, if you look at it just from merely that perspective, not from the optics, he won those 2 rounds. And that's why I could see a judge saying, oh, he won at 7-5. Okay. I could see that. So that's what I got for that fight. Now, with respect to Jaleel Hachett versus hold on a second. Oh man, this dude is calling me at the wrongest time. I'm streaming, bro. Don't call me. Okay. I'm gonna get back to you in a second. I'm streaming. You can't be doing that. Jaleel Hachett versus Jose Roman Vasquez. Here's what's up with that fight. That fight's a good fight. I thought Jaleel Hachett won that fight. I don't understand how Jose Ramon Vasquez won that fight. Maybe some of you guys can explain that to me. Yes, Hachett was falling short of certain shots. Again, the longer fight was Jose Roman Vasquez. Yeah, Hachett had to close the distance. He was throwing certain shots that were short, but he started to find his distance. He was working the body. Vasquez fought valiantly too, but I thought Jaleel Hachett more than pulled out that 10-rounder. I thought that was a unanimous decision for Jaleel Hachett. You guys think that Jaleel Hachett was robbed? What do you guys think? Give your opinion in the comment section, man. I thought Jaleel put in that work. Again, you're in the Puerto Ricans territory, you know, you're in American soil, you know, so they're going for the American, the Puerto Rican. Jaleel Hachett, he American himself, but it's, you know, I don't know, man. And Vasquez is a veteran, right? And they gave that fight to Vasquez. I can't believe it. I don't know how I could feel about that. But I thought Jaleel did enough to win, and convincingly. But apparently the judges didn't see it that way. So, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I thought it was a robbery. I'm going to be honest with y'all. I thought it was a robbery, and it is what it is. You guys leave your comments in the comment section. Jaleel Hachett, he's a good fighter, man. He's a good fighter. Solid, you know, got good defensive skills and everything. It is what it is, though. So and he was the aggressor as well in that fight. I don't know, man. I don't know what the judges were looking at in that. I don't know. But I'll tell Jaleel Hachett is just keep pressing, bro. Just keep on working and doing what you do. You know, sometimes, you know, what can you do? Unless you get that guy out of there, you know, you have to be, you know, have to accept the decisions of the judges. But I thought the judges did a horrible job on judging that fight with Jaleel Hachett and Vasquez. I thought Hachett won. Hey, man, but it is what it is. I'm going to catch you guys later. I am what you need. You've been watching my channel. I hope you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to catch you guys later. Peace. I'm gone.